welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be diving into a story that started with a flooded apartment and a canceled insurance policy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you might think, okay, that's rough, but what's so deep about that?
Right.
Well, get this, we're talking potential corruption that might reach all the way into Arizona's legal system.
What's really fascinating is how this seemingly simple insurance claim, it's snowballed into these allegations of misconduct by not one, but two insurance companies, a judge, and possibly even a cover-up that involved state agencies.
Exactly. And to help us unpack all of this, we have a ton of source material.
Oh, wow.
Court documents, emails, police reports.
That's awesome.
The kind of stuff that usually ends up in a dusty file cabinet, but actually reveals a fascinating story.
You're going to see how a case that started with two sisters, Brittany Henry and Shanier Richmond,
Right.
just trying to get their insurance to cover flood damage.
Yeah.
It could end up having major implications for how justice works or doesn't in Arizona.
Okay, so back in August 2021, the sister's apartment was damaged in a flood.
Oh, no.
They had renter's insurance, so they figured, no problem, we'll just file a claim.
Right, of course.
Simple, right?
Yeah.
Not so much. They had a policy through American Bankers Insurance Company of Florida, but what's interesting is that they mostly interacted with Assurant, the parent company.
Interesting.
All the welcome documents, all the communication, it was all Assurant. Right? And this is where the first red flag kind of pops up.
Okay.
The sisters discovered their policy was canceled.
Oh.
But here's the canceling. The cancellation notices were sent to their old D address, even though they had updated their contact info.
Oh, wow.
When they bought the policy.
That's not good.
And it gets even more suspicious. Those notices were returned as undelivered.
Oh, my gosh.
So the insurance companies knew they weren't reaching the sisters.
Yeah.
And in Arizona, there's a law, ARS 20-1654, that requires timely notice of cancellation.
Right.
This could be a major violation.
Huge.
The sisters specifically chose to receive notices by mail to their correct address, and they have the proof. Was this just a huge mistake by the insurance companies, or was something else going on?
Siegel's staff found it very strange that Assurant was so heavily involved, even though Kavanaugh Law Firm, representing the insurance companies, claimed that Assurant wasn't even involved in stuff like underwriting or cancellations.
Yeah, why was Assurant's name all over everything if they weren't really the ones handling the policy?
Exactly.
It's like they were trying to be both present and invisible at the same time.
Yeah, almost like they wanted to have their cake and eat it too.
Totally. So, understandably frustrated, the sisters file a lawsuit.
Okay.
They allege breach of contract, bad faith, and negligence.
Makes sense.
Initially, their case is assigned to Judge Brett Ostrowski.
Okay.
And things seem to be moving along okay.
Okay.
But then just before a crucial hearing,
Uh-oh.
bam, Judge Ostrowski is replaced by Judge Christopher Whitten.
Cue the dramatic music.
Right.
I mean, this kind of last-minute judge swap is the kind of stuff you see in legal thrillers.
It really is. And it's not just for dramatic effect.
Right.
Imagine you're in the middle of a legal battle, and suddenly you have a new judge who knows nothing about your case.
Oh, yeah.
It can create chaos.
Yeah.
Delays, which often benefit the side with more resources.
Of course.
We need to pay attention to whether that's what happens here.
Okay.
So Judge Whitten takes over.
Right.
And right away, he strikes down the sisters' motion for summary judgment.
What?
Basically, a motion for summary judgment asks the court to rule in your favor without a full trial, because there are no disputed facts that require a jury to decide.
Exactly. And a judge will typically grant it if they believe that based on the undisputed facts and the law, one party is clearly entitled to win.
But Judge Whitten says, nope. His reason, a minor formatting error in their statement of facts. But get this, neither the previous judge nor the opposing counsel had even mentioned this error.
This is where it starts to feel like something's not right.
Right.
It almost seems like he was looking for any excuse to rule against the sisters. This raises a big question. Do judges have too much power to manipulate cases based on technicalities?
It gets even weirder. The court grants the sisters 30 days to refile their motion with the correct formatting. But before that deadline arrives, Judge Whitten rules in favor of the defendants.
Oh my God, are you serious?
I know.
This is a big deal. He essentially denied them a fair chance to present their case.
Right.
It makes you wonder if that 30-day extension was just a way to appear fair while guaranteeing a specific outcome.
Totally. And just to add insult to injury,
Oh no.
Judge Whitten orders the sisters to pay the defendant's attorney fees over $33,000.
Think about that. Not only did they lose their case,
Right.
but now they're being hit with a massive bill.
It's insane.
It's a tactic that can make people think twice before challenging powerful entities.
Right. It's like a warning.
Yeah.
Don't mess with us or we'll make you pay.
Exactly. And this financial burden can be a major deterrent, especially for people who are already struggling.
Yeah.
It raises questions about whether justice is truly accessible to everyone or just those who can afford it. Welcome back to the deep dive if you're just joining us. I highly recommend going back and listening to part 1 because this story just gets wilder as you go deeper.
So we left off with the sisters facing a major setback. Judge Whitten had ruled against them.
Right.
And slapped them with a huge bill for the defendant's attorney fees.
Oof.
But they weren't giving up.
Good for them.
They started digging into Judge Whitten's background.
And what they found raised even more red flags. Siegel's staff uncovered a pattern of reversed rulings by the Court of Appeals.
Interesting.
Often in cases where individuals were challenging large companies. It wasn't just one bad call, it seemed like a trend.
It's like those judge shows where they always say, what's the judge's history on cases like this? Makes you wonder if there was a bias at play.
Exactly. And then comes the bombshell that really makes you go, wait a minute.
Oh boy.
Remember that high-stakes tax case involving Carter Oil Company? Judge Whitten had ruled in favor of Carter Oil, and guess who was representing them?
Kavanaugh Law Firm.
Kavanaugh Law Firm, the same firm defending the insurance companies in the sisters' case.
It can't just be a coincidence.
It's hard to ignore a connection like that.
Right.
It makes you question whether Judge Whitten was truly impartial in the sisters' case. Was there some kind of backroom deal going on?
Right.
Was he doing favors for a law firm he'd worked with before?
And we're talking about a lot of money in that Carter Oil case.
Exactly. These weren't small claims, so the stakes were high. This is where things start to look like they might go beyond just bad judgment and into the territory of something more serious.
Like what?
Like a RICO violation?
A RICO.
RICO?
As in the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act.
That's the one.
Isn't that usually used for organized crime?
It was initially created for that purpose, but it's been applied to a wider range of cases involving patterns of illegal activity. Think of it this way. If someone is engaging in illegal acts as a regular way of doing business, that's when RICO might come into play.
So how could RICO possibly apply to this case?
Well, to prove a RICO violation, you have to establish a pattern of racketeering activity, the existence of an enterprise.
Right.
And the link between the two racketeering activity can include things like bribery, extortion, wire fraud,
Wow.
mail fraud, obstruction of justice, and more.
Okay, so let's break that down in the context of this case.
Yeah.
What are some specific examples of potential racketeering activity?
Siegel's staff believed Judge Whitten striking down the sisters' motion based on a tiny formatting error after the previous judge was fine with it
Yeah.
could be seen as obstruction of justice. He was essentially using his power to block their case from moving forward fairly.
And then there's that whole thing about him ruling in favor of the defendants before the sisters even had a chance to refile their motion.
Exactly. That also looks like obstruction of justice. He denied them due process, which is a fundamental right in our legal system. And the $33,000 in attorney fees he ordered them to pay,
Yeah.
that could be construed as extortion.
Wow. So those actions by Judge Whitten alone could potentially be considered racketeering activity.
Potentially, yes.
But what about this enterprise element? Who else might be involved?
Well, the connection between Judge Whitten and Kavanaugh Law Firm is pretty suspicious. And when you factor in the insurance companies sending those cancellation notices to the wrong address, it starts to look like a coordinated effort.
It's like everyone was working together to get a specific outcome.
Yeah.
An outcome that benefited the insurance companies and protected Judge Whitten.
Right. And then there's the Arizona Attorney General's office. They've been completely silent on this whole issue,
Oh, really?
refusing to respond to multiple emails from the sisters and Siegel's staff, pleading for their help.
It's almost like they were intentionally ignoring the problem.
It's possible.
If they had legitimate reasons for not getting involved, why not at least acknowledge the communication?
That's a good question. Their silence raises serious concerns about whether they were protecting someone involved in this scheme.
So we have Judge Whitten Kavanaugh Law Firm,
Right.
possibly the insurance companies,
Uh-huh.
and maybe even the Arizona Attorney General's office.
Right.
Is there anyone else who could be part of this potential enterprise?
Don't forget the Arizona Department of Insurance.
Oh, right?
They've been blocking the release of public records that could shed light on the insurance company's actions in this case.
Interesting.
If they were intentionally withholding information to protect the insurance companies,
Right.
that would make them part of the enterprise as well.
It's like a web of interconnected players, each one playing their part to keep the whole scheme going.
Exactly. And it's a pretty sophisticated operation if you think about it. They're using their collective power and influence to manipulate the system from within.
It's kind of scary to think about. If this is really happening,
Yeah.
what does it mean for regular people who are trying to seek justice in Arizona?
That's a big question. If the very people who are supposed to be upholding the law are the ones breaking it,
Right.
who can you trust?
The sisters must have felt completely helpless. What did they do next?
Well, at this point, they were getting desperate. They had hit a wall with the legal system and weren't getting any response from the Attorney General's office.
Right.
They decided to take a risky move and contact the Gilbert Police Department,
Oh, wow.
specifically their white-collar crime division.
So they went from a civil lawsuit to potential criminal charges.
Exactly.
That's a huge step.
They presented all their evidence to the police, highlighting Judge Witten's suspicious rulings, his connection to Kavanaugh Law Firm, and the overall feeling that something corrupt was happening.
Yeah.
They were hoping that law enforcement would take their claims seriously.
It must have taken a lot of courage to go to the police.
And amazingly, the Gilbert police did take them seriously.
Really?
They launched an investigation, conducted interviews, and even got ready to arrest Judge Witten.
Whoa, hold on. They were going to arrest a sitting judge.
That's what the sources say.
Wow.
But then right as they were about to proceed, they got a call from the Arizona Attorney General's office. Guess what they said?
They probably said, hold your horses.
Yeah.
Or looking into it or something like that.
Not even close.
Yeah.
They told the police to stand down.
What's this? Seriously, why would the Attorney General's office stop an arrest when the police thought they had enough evidence to take a judge into custody?
That's the question that screams out here.
Right.
The timing of the intervention, right as the police were ready to make an arrest, and the Attorney General's silence afterwards, makes it seem like they were deliberately trying to protect Judge Witten and shield him from any consequences.
So let me get this straight. The sisters' case started with a flooded apartment and a canceled insurance policy.
Yep.
Now we're talking about a potential ICO conspiracy that might involve a judge, a law firm, 2 insurance companies,
Right.
the Attorney General's office, and maybe even the Department of Insurance.
You got it.
It's like a house of cards waiting to collapse.
And the big question now is, will anyone be held accountable?
Right.
Or will this whole thing just be swept under the rug?
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. This is the final part of our exploration into a case that started with a flooded apartment and a canceled insurance policy,
Right.
but has spiraled into something much bigger.
Yeah, if you're just tuning in, I highly recommend going back and listening to parts 1 and 2.
Yes.
This story unfolds like a legal thriller, with each twist revealing a deeper layer of potential corruption.
We left off with the Gilbert police ready to arrest Judge Witten. But being told to stand down by the Arizona Attorney General's office, it left us with a ton of questions. The biggest being, why would the top legal authority in the state intervene to protect a judge facing such serious allegations?
Siegel staff believed that the Attorney General's intervention, coupled with their continued silence, could point towards a deliberate effort to shield Judge Witten and potentially others involved from accountability.
So we've got a judge with a history of suspicious rulings, a powerful law firm with connections to both the judge and the insurance companies.
Right.
Insurance companies engaging in potentially questionable practices.
Yeah.
And now, a state agency seemingly obstructing justice. How does this all tie into a potential RICOBO violation?
Remember, ICOCO, the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, is designed to target not just individual acts of wrongdoing, but a pattern of illegal activity carried out by an enterprise.
Right.
It's about exposing the system of corruption, not just the players.
Okay, so let's break that down.
Yeah.
We've already touched on some of the potential racketeering activities in this case. Judge Witten's rulings, the insurance company's misleading communications, the Attorney General's lack of response. What about this enterprise element? Who could potentially be part of it?
Siegel staff believe the evidence suggests a network of entities working together to achieve a common goal. We have Judge Witten and Kavanaugh Law Firm, whose connection in the Carter Oil case raises serious concerns about their relationship and potential motives. Then you have the insurance companies themselves potentially benefiting from favorable rulings, and the Attorney General's inaction.
And we can't forget the Arizona Department of Insurance. Their refusal to release public records about the insurance company's operations in Arizona only adds to the suspicion.
Exactly. Their lack of transparency is a huge red flag. If they're intentionally withholding information that could be relevant to the investigation, they become part of the problem.
So we're potentially looking at a network that includes a judge, a law firm, 2 insurance companies,
Right.
the Attorney General's office, and the Department of Insurance. It sounds like something out of a conspiracy move.
I know, right?
But the reality is, if true, this could have a chilling effect on anyone seeking justice in Arizona.
Think about what this means for you. If powerful entities can collude to manipulate the system, how can ordinary citizens expect a fair shake?
Right.
This case goes beyond the immediate circumstances of a flooded apartment. It raises fundamental questions about the integrity of our institutions.
It's a stark reminder that corruption can exist even in the places we least expect it, and that the pursuit of justice is often an uphill battle, especially when going up against those with power and influence.
Exactly. And that's why cases like this are so important. They shine a light on the potential for abuse and remind us that we need to be vigilant in holding those in power accountable.
This deep dive started with a seemingly simple insurance claim and has taken us deep into a potential web of corruption, with unanswered questions lingering at every turn. The sisters' case is still ongoing, and we'll be following it closely to see what unfolds.
In the meantime, this case serves as a powerful reminder. We need to be aware of the potential for abuse of power, to ask tough questions, and to demand transparency from our institutions. Justice thrives in the light, and it's our collective responsibility to ensure that those in power are held accountable for their actions.
Thank you for joining us on the deep dive. We encourage you to check out the source material linked to the show notes and to continue exploring the complexities of the legal system and the pursuit of justice. Remember, awareness is the first step towards creating a more just world for everyone.